In this activity, I will be recreating this house scene and prompting you to answer questions as we go along with the coding. I am logged into my account at code.org, so to start a new project, and we're using GameLab, I scroll all the way down to the bottom or near the bottom of the dashboard page and click on GameLab. And this is always here when you first start a program. You just get rid of it if you don't want it. And I want to use a comment code for every, or identifying every different portion of my animation. So the first thing I'm going to put in is my background. So I'll just comment that this is the background. And I need to find my tool for the background. And these are all the different categories of functions. So my background will be in the drawing function, and or a drawing category rather. And I'll find background, and that scene that you are creating had a light blue background. So I'll write light blue, kind of like your review animation. And then next I'm going to put in some grass. So I will bring my comment out again and identify that I am now creating the grass. And the grass is going to be 30 pixels high at the bottom of my screen area. So I'm going to make it a rectangle, and in order for that rectangle to show up the right color, I'd have to identify that color, right? And that has to go before I draw the rectangle. So I'm going to go ahead and identify the color I need, which is green, and then make my rectangle. So here's my rectangle tool. And now I need to know what these numbers mean so that I can position it as I want it. Now the grass, I want it to be 30 pixels high and go all the way across the screen. So my first value is the X value, and that's from left to right. Since I want it to start right here, I know that that's where X is 0. And I want it to start on the y-axis. Since it's 30 pixels high, I want it to start at 370 because the screen is 400 pixels high. And then this is the width and the height of my grass. My width, I want it to go all the way across the screen, which is 400 pixels. And the height, I said, was going to be 30 pixels. And enter. And there is my grass. Next I'll add the flowers that I had on the left here. And to add those, I need to go to the place where I insert sprites or add sprites to my program. That's the animation tab. I'll click on this and do a search for flower. And this is the one I chose. So I'll add that. And I wanted the flowers not all going in the exact same direction. So if I right click, or actually here is the duplicate command, I'm going to duplicate the flower. And then this second flower, I have to give it a different name. I don't really like the name flower 1 copy. So if the first one's flower 1, I'll make this one flower 2. And now I'm going to make this flip vertically so it actually looks like it's leaning in the other direction. And now I go back to my code, and again there's what I have so far. Now I need to insert my flower sprites. So I start with a comment line and place it in there, and I'll just say flowers, and I need to put in a bunch of flowers. So flowers, or to put in the flowers, I use which category? My flowers are sprites. So I go there, and the first tool is to identify, first of all, the variable and its placement. So here is where I name my sprite, and I don't leave it just sprite. I'm going to name it, I'm going to name it Yellow Daisy. So I'm going to use camel case when I name this, and that means that every word after the first word is capitalized to make each separate word kind of jump out. And I'll create that sprite. Well, the flowers were all in this area right here. So I would like to place that first one close to the edge, but not on the edge, because I want the flower to show up. So I'll start with an X value of 10. And my Y values are actually all going to be the same. So I know that this is 370 where the grass meets the background. So I'll try 370 and see what it looks like. Okay, and I don't see anything. Why don't I see anything? Well, that's my square, right? It would just be my placement. So before I can ever see my sprites, I would have to put in the draw command. So draw sprites, and now it doesn't know it's a flower yet either. So what do I have to do to tell the program that my sprite is going to be the flower image? I have to set its animation. So I take this and put it here, and this should match its variable name, Yellow Daisy. And then I choose the flower. I'll choose flower 1. And now take a look. And much too big, right? So I need to scale that down. So I'm going to use my sprite scale, but see how I can't put it in like this. Oh, it automatically put in that portion, so that's good. All right, so again, I'm using my sprite name. And here I'm going to make it 0.2. Seems reasonable. And now I'll just try it and see if it looks good. Okay, and it looks to me like it's too low. I want it to look more like it's up toward the top of the grass. So what value do I need to change in here? I need to change the the Y value right here of my placement. So I'll try, is it going to be a higher number or a lower number? I'll look here, and 400 is at the bottom, 0 is at the top, so it's going to be a number that's smaller. So I'll try 360 and see what happens. Nope, 350. And that looks a little better, but I still want it higher, so 340. There, that looks good. Okay, I don't like that the one on the end is leaning left. Let's make it lean right. How will I do that? I choose the other flower. There we go. And now I need to add more flowers going along here. And how do I add more flowers? Well, I don't know if you discovered that you can copy and paste a set of blocks, but I just highlight them all, hit Control C, and then go to where I want them copied. So I'm at the end of this line 9, and paste, 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 paste. And now those flowers are all right on top of each other. I don't want them right on top of each other because it looks like it's just one flower. So what I need to do is move them over on the x-axis. So which number would that be? If I'm looking at this one, I have 10, 340 is the placement of this sprite. This one then, the number I will change is the 10. I want, instead of 10 to be, I'll go up by 25s. 35, 60, 85, 100, whoops, not 100, 110, 135, and 160. Okay, let's see what we have. Okay, that looks all right, except for the fact that we have all the same flower. So I'm going to take some of these and switch it to flower 1. And I don't want it to be exactly every other flower, so let's do these two right next to each other and see how that looks. Okay, that looks a little more natural. All right, so now I'm going to insert the house. And when I say insert, obviously I'm not drawing it, right? So I'm going to my animation again, and I'll bring in a house. I'm going to search. And let's see, I think this is the one. And I don't like that name, so I'm going to call it house. Go back to my code and consider where I want to place that house. So I want it in this area, in that house. Since it's a sprite, it's the center of the house that will be its placement. So I'm going to go ahead and put in my comment line first, identifying that I'm putting the house in. I'm done with the flowers. And bring in my sprite, so variable, and what seems like a reasonable name for this sprite, house. And let's see, if I want it in this region right here, I'm going to take a guess at 300, 300, and what's going to happen when I hit this? It just gives me the square. Okay, so the square looks decent. Now let's see how it looks once I actually put the house in. Okay, so I tell it that this is the image. And, okay, too big. So how am I going to get that to fit better? I scale it down. So sprite scale. And again, I need to change it to the variable name. And I'm going to scale it about half. Let's try half, 0.5. Okay, that looks pretty good. A little bit off to the right though. Let's get a little space there. Which number am I going to change? This one. Let's try 280. This is the Y value, which, I'm sorry, that was wrong. That's the Y value. This is the X value. So I'm going to move it to the left a little bit. And too much. So let's try 290. That looks pretty good. The flowers are huge though, aren't they? We better scale these flowers down more. Whoops, I did 0.1 again. Okay, now it's too high and I missed one right here. Whoops, what happened? It's line 14, Yellow Daisy. Oh, I have that weird character in there. There we go. Okay, so too high, bring it down. So all of which values, my X or my Y? My Y values, all of those have to come down. I'll just try the first one to see what it looks like if I do 360. Not 3,360, but 360. And yeah, that looks pretty good. So we'll do 360 on all of them. And here we go. Okay, well, it looks a little better, except I think I moved my house down. I don't remember now what I had it at, so I'll just have to try something that sounds reasonable. I'll say 300. That's good. Okay, now we still have that sun. So we're going to put in the image of the sun. Did I identify my house separately? I did. So let's put in a comment line for the sun. And we're going to our drawing tools. So comment. And sun. And now I need to put in an ellipse that's going to be right at 0, 0. So I'll grab the ellipse tool. And you probably see it right away. There it is. Okay. So right here I have the ellipse, and we need to know what these different numbers stand for. So the first number is the x value. I want it all the way on the left, so that would be 0, and I want it all the way on, this is the center of that circle, all the way on top, so that's also 0. And then I think about 50 in size. So that would be my diameter. But we're only going to see half of it. So let's see what happens. Okay, looks a little small. Let's do 100. And now it's gray. I want it to be yellow. So I will bind my fill tool and tell it to be yellow. So I have yellow. And why isn't it yellow? Because before I draw a shape, I have to identify all of its properties. So I have the fill before it now. And notice that there is a stroke line that's black. There are two different methods of getting rid of that black stroke line. I could either say no stroke, or I could bring in the stroke color and say yellow, but no stroke works just fine. There we go. And now I need to put in the rays. So my rays are simply lines right here. So I bring it in, and if I look at the command block in our command library, I have x1, y1, x2, y2. So these two are the beginning of your line, and these two are the end of your line. So the x and y for the beginning of the line, I'm going to start all of them in the corner at 0, 0. And then I want them to end at different places. So I'll just put my mouse over here and say about 575 for the end of that line, 575. And let's see what happens. I run it, and there is no line there. Why is that? Well, what gives line its depth? If I have an ellipse, then it's a fill to give it its color. But for a line, it's a stroke. And the last command I have for stroke is no stroke, so it's not showing up at all. So I need to say I want a stroke color, and I should probably also specify how thick I want it to be. So we'll say now we want the stroke to be yellow, and if I run it now, there it is really small or really narrow, so I need to add stroke weight, and I think I'll try size 5, and there it is. Okay, so we'll add the rest of our rays, and all of the rays, remember we're starting at x, 0, and also 0 for y. So one thing I discovered as I was making my other one is that if when I'm making the line around the sun, since I am using this 0, 0 as my position to start the X and Y, if I reverse these two numbers, it'll give me a symmetrical line on the other side of the sun. I just reverse my second X and Y. There we go. And if I want one right down the center, then my X and the Y will stay the same. So I'll try 75 and 75. So I'll put another line in. All of them start at 0, 0. Let's try 75, 75 and see how that looks. That's pretty decent. And now let's make one about, let's see, 30, 80 maybe. So I'll put in my rectangle, or my line rather. I'll try 30, 80, and then it's symmetrical line. Whoops, not shape, line. So I'll just reverse my end point for the X and Y, 80 and 30, and let's see how that looks. Okay, that looks decent. So we'll leave that, and it looks like the scene is done. Now I can share. Oh, you know, I should probably save it first. Right now it says untitled, so I want to rename it, and I'll just say sunny day, and save, and then share and copy link to project. So you're going to copy this and submit it to the assignment.